Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Growthsutra monthly LinkedIn live session. I'm Ritika, and I'm excited to be with you today for what I know will be a very informative session. Every month, we gather here at Growthsutra to explore the trends, insights, and tactics, and that can accelerate your growth journey. Today's session is particularly special because we are focusing on something every business leader, entrepreneur, and growth minded professional is laser focused on: door openers and landing spots for 2x conversation and faster wins. Let me introduce our speakers for today's session. First, we have Dean Nolly, President and founder of Sales Growth Imagination LLC. We have Atul Kulshrestha, founder and managing partner at Growbiz. Nelson Fernandez, founder of Big Leaps Consulting, and Vishindra Verma, founder and CEO of Growthsutra and host for our today's session. Now, let me outline the flow of our today's session. So, we'll be having three segments. The first segment is the strategic lens on landing spots. The second segment will be the strategic lens on door openers. And the third and last segment is going to be tactics in action, real world scenarios. I want to encourage everyone watching to actively engage with us throughout this session. In the chat window, please share your name and your city. Drop your questions in the comments and share your own experience, and please like the event page. So let's dive in and discover how to turn your 2020X vision into reality through strategic doors openers and high converting landing spots.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you so much. Hello, namaste, everyone. Welcome to 2020 X Vision Live. Let me start with the first session that I hear constantly from B2B startup and SMB founders. They tell me we have won deals through our connections, we have got proof points, but we are not able to scale. What we really need is someone who can open doors for us, someone who can point us to the right accounts where we can actually close deals. Just connect us to the right CXO, help us land in the right spot, and when the contract is signed, we'll pay you a cut. I think most of the people might have, seen that kind of comment coming from the SMB founders and B2B startups who are struggling while scaling their firm. And it's not just founders. In fact, even the enterprise C-suite sales leaders and their teams spend hours making pitch decks, writing white papers, sending cold emails, making calls, and updating CRMs. Yet momentum is still missing. And when things don't move, many leaders fall back on the old line. If you are not in the field meeting people, you can't sell. But even that doesn't always open the right doors. So the fastest way to 2x your 2x your conversions isn't more hustle, isn't more that much of effort, but it's sharper landing spots and smarter door openers. But how do we define these? And that's the reason we are having this session today, where I have expert panelists with me today, as Ritika already introduced them. So let me kick off by posing a challenge to them. Um, so all of you, if you could share your perspective in terms of what's one piece of common sales advice about opening doors or finding landing spots that you all now believe is outdated. If you could share that, we can kick off with this challenge. Nelson, maybe we can begin with you.
Sure. Thanks, Vish, for the opportunity. How did you know I was raring to go on this question? Basically, I think in the days gone by, it was very normal for someone who is a rock star sales guy to say that, hey, I can walk into any customer's place and I can kind of just pick up right from there in real time and then kind of build on the conversation without giving it a thought around who these guys are, what are their challenges, what really is kind of kicking, and what is kind of stopping in their path from exponential growth, right? and you could safely walk in and then you could start a conversation. Well, today it's no longer the case. I mean, people are going to kind of push you back if they notice you are just at the table without any substance, without having understood anything about them. You're going to kind of prematurely get ejected out of the room, right? So just in a nutshell, and I'll pause here for our other colleagues to share their perspectives.
Thank Nelson. Dean?
Yeah, Vish, good morning. And hey, Nelson, you're always ready to go. It says big leapfrogs. It's more the Energizer Bunny. So um, I think one of the things we've heard over the last several years is that relationship selling is dead. I would call BS on that. I think relationship selling has now been redefined. But when you really start looking through relationship economics and trying to build the right intentional strategy, it's really been redefined. And as a good friend of mine, Ray, who's in a different industry, would say, status quo is the killer of all things invented. I'm simply going to say status quo is the killer of revenue growth and sales. I think today you will hear how it can be significantly different with customers versus as trying to capture new logos. But it's also a different dynamic, Vish, as we've talked about, hunter versus farmer, and really it's been in an existing market that versus expanding into one where you're the new company, the new solution. So if there's two things that you take away from me, it's relationship selling redefined, and we'll talk through that. And then most importantly, staying away from status quo are the two big takeaways.
Thank you, Dean. In fact, I picked a few words from you, and one was relationship economics. I think that's a great kind of connotation that can be used, especially when you are evaluating your relationship with with your prospects. Atul, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Vish. First of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this excellent session with Nelson and Dean. So, see, I've been in the services industry through and through. One cliche is early days, when I started my career in the shared services BPO industry was you're selling services, right? IT services, IT enabled services, or, and at some point in time, I realized you're not selling your services, you're selling your capabilities, right? And I think that's true even today, even more true today, because many times, and I'm talking about, since our sessions are mostly targeted towards youngsters and startups and young organizations, I think it's important for companies to understand that you're selling capabilities, you're selling value proposition, right? And that's something which is very important very early. If you recognize that fact and you acknowledge and train your sales messaging around that these are the capabilities which we are offering, these are the product characteristics which will benefit you, your business in this way, the better it is for both the buyer as a seller, right? So that's one cliche which I would say, in my experiences, is a reality today.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you for sharing. And just to mention that we have, in terms of attendees, we not only have founders and startups, young people, but we also have senior leaders who are joining us, who have actually confirmed their participation in this session. So I'm expecting a lot of people who are joining from the big enterprises as well.
Perfect.
Hearing insights from all of us. But thank you so much. So that sets the context. And so if we can conclude, a landing spot is where momentum starts. and a door opener is how trust begins. And let's begin our discussion with the first segment, which is the strategic lens on landing spots. And we often think of a landing spot as winning the first deal, but many teams discover the hard way that not even landing a spot leads to growth. And not all landing spots actually leads to growth. Some are dead ends, and others are springboards. But how do we identify these landing spots? And let me go back to the panel. Let me begin with Atul. Atul, could you share your quick test to identify a fake landing spot before we waste a quarter? What do you check in say week one? So you found you or your team found a landing spot. How would you identify that this landing spot is worth pursuing, or it's worth continuing?
Sure,
Could you
sure,
share
sure.
some real world examples to
Yeah,
share?
yeah. No, so see, first of all, I think when you start the conversation, week one, if you're able to establish the fact that are you talking to the right person, right?
Hmm.
If the person in front of you is the right person who can give you more, color to to what is the status within the organization, what is the buying requirement, who's the buyer. So if you're able to get that flavor, then I think you're not in a fake spot, right?
Hmm.
But there are again multiple different ways. But I, based on my experience in terms, and again, like you said, since I have worked in large organizations, I will talk about some of the large deals, right? And one thing which I learned both as part of my structured training, sales training, um, was to identify a fox in the organization, right?
Okay.
And so you have to identify that one person, a fox, who's
Hmm.
smart, well connected, is able to show you the how to navigate the corridors of the organization, right? That person you need to identify. Whether if you're lucky, you can get to that person in week one.
Hmm.
Else you will need to do more research, you will have to understand, you will have to talk to people. And that's where I think the salespeople are really smart. I was never a salesperson, but I was a business person. But we had some very smart salespeople who would figure out, who will map the entire organization and figure out the
Hmm.
right person who could be the fox for us, right? And that
Hmm.
fox will then kind of lead us at they would literally become like a coach to you, an insider coach to you, to
Yeah.
navigate some of those
Hmm.
conversations. And again, it's obviously, we've all worked in large organizations, so ethical practices have to be followed, right? But at the same time, right, you need to make sure that you are cultivating some of those contacts. You have to leverage your relationships, like Dean was saying. Figure
Hmm.
out as many connects, because it's not just about connecting with one person, especially even in a mid-sized organization. You are dealing with a hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Any deal which crosses the threshold of, let's say, in some organization it could be a couple of $100,000. In some cases, larger organization, it could be some $1 million, right? But as long, if it is less than that, yes, you can just limit yourself to those key stakeholders, decision makers. But
Hmm.
if you are really looking at a multi-million-dollar deal, you are dealing with hierarchy, right? So the relationship has to be made at every level, and
Hmm.
at every point you have to sell your capabilities, your value proposition. And that's what will take you closer to the winning the deal. That's been my experience.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you so much. I like that the context that you use, especially identifying fox in the organization. So, some of the people they call these as sponsors or champions, or there are many words which have been used. I think there's no defined set of nomenclature for these kind of people.
Correct.
But yeah, that is good context. Dean, so you have been working with a lot of small and mid-sized companies, and as a sales leader, and as a hunter, so your approach, what is your approach in terms of finding a landing spot um, that could actually differ in a brand new market like the US versus an existing one like India? I mean, I'm just sharing a context. But say for you, if you are say engaged with a company in here in India who doesn't have who don't have their presence in US market, and US market is completely a new territory for them. So what would be your approach in terms of helping them find out a landing spot that they can leverage moving on?
Well, it's a great question because I'm dealing with companies, as you know, out of India, out of Dubai, Beirut, coming into the U.S. And I think one of the things to not do is make assumptions, because you're in your comfort zone when you're on your homeland, if you will, and you know your product services, you know where they fit. You have some incredible relationships, testimonials. You know your competitors. You know where your products fit the most, where you have a lot of data around where your best win percentage is. You know where you're going to make the most money on which niches. Now you're coming into a new market. You can't make the assumptions because, one, you're going to be up against different competitors. The rules are different. And I'll give you one great example. I'm talking to one company now, and their main markets are Germany, United Immigrants, Beirut, or really Lebanon, and then the US. Well, when you start looking at the US, all of a sudden you had to, if you try to boil the ocean and go to all 50 states, you're going to have a very rude awakening depending on the product and service you're trying to deliver. So what I tried to do is to look at what would resemble the footprint. So we looked at, as an example, 2 different states side by side, either one individually. Let's just pick on South Carolina, Georgia. Well, that's bigger than the other markets they're in entirely, just on those 2 states. Matter of fact, any one of those states are bigger than 2 of those markets. So, but the other part is the partners that they work with in Germany, they don't all exist in the US. The competitors are different. And I think don't make any assumptions. And, I'll go back to the, status quo is the killer of revenue growth. In this case, the status quo of what you may know in your home country is going to be uniquely different, or could be. I know the other part of the question was existing customers versus new customers. And I got to tell you, that's where, and I know we'll talk on it in some further segments, the relationship aspect and being able to understand those relationship connections, getting introductions, doing your research in advance becomes more critical on not just existing, but on the new logos. And a great example is if you're selling, and in the US, it's a real issue, there's a lot of decision makers that are Gen Y, Gen Z. You better know that they've done research on you and they know who you are. They know your product, your services, and they know your competitors. And they're looking for 2 things. One, are you going to tell them the truth when they ask you a tough question? Because they're going to be trying to set up, but they also are already going to know where your product fits to your competitors. So things like doing a disc profile with KnowledgeNet in advance. I mean, you're looking for every advantage you can, because you cannot show up unprepared. And I think Nelson and Atul both kind of touched on it. The relationship selling is still critical, but it's being redefined. So you can't go in thinking you're just that great sales professional and wing it. That research is going to be critical.
Yeah, research is certainly a key tool which a lot of salespeople use. But you talked about multiple when you are scaling your business in multiple locations. That itself brings its own challenge. Identifying, because the landing spot may vary uh, from country to country, and your strategy that could got you some clients in one country may differ in the other country. But what works, especially now since we have global markets, so some of the references, like if you got references from say US market, or even markets in India, then those markets can become can help in opening doors for you. Okay, let me. That's a good response. Let me come back to. Let me go to Nelson now. And while we talked about multiple countries, how you're scaling in multiple countries, uh, let's focus on one account where we have multiple stakeholders. Atul also talked about the buying committee, right? So there are normally, as per the research today, you have 7 to 11 members in a buying committee, and winning all the members at same time is always a challenge. But how do you coach a salesperson to navigate this complex buying committee and build a consensus zone that satisfies everyone from IT to finance to the end user? Nelson?
Sure, Atul. Very interesting. Uh, One of my favorite questions. And in fact, I did a post on LinkedIn this morning around walking into a room full of people you didn't know were going to be a part of a meeting. And what does one do when he or she is presented with such a scenario, right? Anyways,
Hmm.
to the question, uh, I coach reps to manufacture consensus, not hope for it. In baseline
Hmm.
selling, you don't sprint to the home plate. You touch every base. You get the compelling reasons to change, full qualification, and a mutually agreed decision path.
Hmm.
Step one, you map the committee and name a champion. We diagram who's the economic buyer,
Hmm.
approvers, influencers, and likely blockers. No champion, no deal. And step two, build compelling reasons to buy for each persona. For example,
Hmm.
for IT, it's risk, integration, and control. For finance, it's payback, cash flow, TCO. For end users, it's fewer steps and time back. So
Hmm. Hmm.
translate each reason into either money, risk reduced, or time saved. So finance doesn't need to guess. And if I would say step three, co-create a success scorecard. 3 to 5 shared metrics that everyone signs up to. For example, SOC 2 controls met, or let's say less than 30 days integration, or less than
Hmm.
9-month payback, 20% cycle time cut for users. This becomes the center of gravity, our consensus zone.
Hmm.
Then I would say step three. Step four, run a mutual action plan, not a
Hmm.
vendor timeline. We sequence security review, data privacy,
Hmm.
legal, procurement around that scorecard. Each task has an owner and a date. We
Hmm.
use conditional clauses, Vish. If we prove X by Y, are you prepared to approve? Kind of a thing, right?
Hmm.
Then
Hmm.
the next step would be prove, instrument, de-risk. We pilot
Hmm.
or simulate the value where it matters the most. You capture
Hmm.
weekly value readouts, keep a risk ledger to preempt objections. For IT, it
Hmm.
is controls. For finance, it is sensitivity to the assumptions that these guys are making. For the users, it could simply be change fatigue, etc. Ultimately, orchestrate the decision meeting, lead with the business case tied to the scorecard. Then have the IT, finance, the user leader each confirm their criteria were met. The champion asks for the decision, the economic buyer authorizes it. That's how we create a consensus zone, by aligning on quantified outcomes before we present a solution. And most cases it doesn't happen that way. In baseline
Yeah.
selling terms, we don't leave second base until we are truly qualified. Access to power, access to budget, timelines, decision processes are clear. And by the time we round three, the committee already feels that the solution is theirs. Hope it helps.
No, certainly, certainly. In fact, I was actually thinking, would you prefer to call champion as Fox in that company?
You
As
get
Atul
you
mentioned.
get Atul you get Atul on the next event, and he will give it a new name. I mean, ultimately these are all the same guys. You need a Fox, you need a champion, you need
Yeah.
someone,
Who
and
can stay with you in this entire journey?
who
That
can
is very
stay with
critical.
you. And you need to recognize whether these people are in tune with you right from the beginning. And you have to cut losses if you think they are not. They are actually
Yeah.
just using you as one more vendor to compare in their Excel sheets. You've got to make that impression, Vish.
Correct. Yeah.
In fact, if I can add, Vish, I think this actually, two things which are very, very critical. The sales process, which I think Dean and Nelson are masters of the sales process, right? And the orchestration. I think the key here is orchestration. How do you
Yeah.
orchestrate the whole, and navigate it through the motion is what is, because most of the times people think that selling is easy. You get a salesperson, he will go and talk to the customer, and they will buy it from you. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's a complex world today, right? So
No,
that's it.
orchestration is certainly important. At the same time, that governance which is needed.
Yeah,
And
the
if you don't have that orchestration, then it becomes very challenging. There are a couple of questions that we received. These
I see
questions are
Deepak
from,
Mehta.
Hey
Yeah,
Vish,
very
could I add
interesting.
one thing to Atul? Because
yeah,
he nailed it on the sales process, and I know I've bored you guys to death for a couple years on what I do in sales process. But as I was talking to one of the owners in a company at Lebanon, I mean, the one thing that I knew, we could take the foundation in the U.S., build the sales process, make sure that we have every step of that funnel repeatable and predictable, what we're doing. We'll pivot where we're off base, but we'll perfect it. We can automate that into whatever CRM they're using. It's not relevant which one. And at that point, that part I knew that we could replicate in all four of the regions that this gentleman, or countries he wanted to participate. Um, what I did tell him, I said, the culture adjustments in the business of how you're going to do business here, I mean, obviously that has to be adjusted. But the core foundation, back to a tool with sales process, that being automated and being predictable outcome from repeatable tasks, that part you can replicate across whatever regions or countries you want to do business.
Correct.
absolutely. Yeah. See, all these processes and that sounds a little complex. And sometimes when you are trying to identify a landing spot, you'd like to have something which is low risk, um, uh, you know, um, uh, cost effective landing spot, so that you can actually make an entry. And that's where then you can, once you have landed, once you have your foot in the door, then you can expand. But then even identifying that landing spot, like what you shared in terms of the processes, in terms of the governance, the orchestration which is needed, I think that itself requires a lot of effort and a lot of thinking, so as to kind of play it in a very smart manner, rather than putting the entire effort to to just one account.
Mhm.
But let me come back to the let me pick a couple of questions that Deepak has shared, and I think some of you have already responded. But this is first question is, what do you think, Dean? What do you think you are? Um, uh, what do you think are the best ways for a startup to win enterprise clients? Is specifically how to reach out, engage, and build trust when bootstrap. So I think that's what I was talking about. Especially when you are when your company is a startup, it's bootstrapped, you are limited with resources. You might not be able to follow that complex governance processes and orchestration. So in that scenario, how can you identify landing spots, especially in enterprise world?
No, that's a great question, because what you're talking about to get into the enterprise, we're not talking about tactical or transactional. We're talking about strategic consultative selling. So I think the best way, and I'm going to give some examples, is to look at the relationship connection path. And there's, as you know, I deal with two tools, KnowledgeNet AI and also Avner, which I lead the small business channel for them in the US
Mm,
right now. And I have a customer that is less than 10 million, and they're doing high IT tech staffing in the Fortune Global 500. So there's a very large account, Fortune 100, moving into Atlanta. And
mm,
they're like, I've got to get to the chief data officer and the CISO. Um, I, I know they're going to be from Minneapolis, where this company is. The sales rep goes in and does the relationship mapping with KnowledgeNet, with the LinkedIn profile, looking at the multiple connection paths. And he about
mm,
fell out of his chair. His top customer, best contact, where he has a personal relationship, was connected first round to both of these gentlemen. So
mm,
normally you would hit a message at a KnowledgeNet to say, hey, Nelson Vish, do you know this person? If so, could you help me? This case, he picked up the cell phone and
mm,
he went through saying, hey, I'd really like some help. And the decision maker said, be glad to help you, but you did make a bad judgment decision. He said, these are not Minneapolis. These are Georgia boys. This company hired them here because they knew they were going to build out a 400-person IT organization. Um, but he was introduced to those individuals. Those individuals then introduced him back into the talent acquisition group in Minneapolis. And this small company now has a great opportunity in an extremely large Fortune 100 company. Um,
mm.
I could give you so that's one. The other, that's helping find and getting the starting point. But once you have the starting point, things that you need to do is to intentionally map out with Avner the
Mm,
relationships that are most important to you with current customers to expand wallet share or for new clients. Either way. And what you're going to do is you're going to be able to see with email traffic as well as with LinkedIn posts, you're going to be able to see what these decision makers are doing. You're going to see
yeah.
which events they're going to. So,
Mm,
because what you're looking for are opportunities to make meaningful comments on their posts, or to coincidentally, and I'll say the word coincidentally, show up at the same event where the decision makers are going to be, because you're trying to do different touch points. And I can tell you, I was under NDA and then alpha, and it's now beta. The product's getting ready to come to market. Um, so I've been on this product for almost 2 years, but after 15 months, the targets for my own business, because I live in the CEO peer group world. So Vistage, C12, Convene, Tab, the Institute for Entrepreneurship, the family business at Kennesaw State, etc.
yeah.
And I can tell you, forget the fact that I'm doing intentional cadences and figured out how to add value to help them. I now know how they think. I
Mm,
watch
mm,
what they do daily, and I know how they do their business and how they think. And it takes time. So we're talking. So when I talk relationship, I'm talking. This has a whole new context. And if you're trying to take new logos and business away from your competitors, you have no other choice unless you're just lucky and that competitor drops the ball. And we all love those when we get bluebirds or low hanging fruit. They don't happen enough, unfortunately. But the relationship economics and that intentional part is critical. And not only will it help you expand and get into new logos, the side effect that we all need at times, I know it keeps me accountable. So it's almost like me having a drill sergeant managing me, which I need that at times. So
Yeah. So, just to conclude, Deepak, what Dean shared, there are a couple of points. One is, of course, the research. So there are many tools which are available which can get you some insights in terms of intent, in terms of research. So that is critical. Second is the set of events that are taking place in the market. So you can identify those events where your target customers are going, and you can leverage those events to kind of build your connects there. Third, which he also mentioned, are the groups, various groups, and he named a couple of groups that you might have noted down. So those groups could be good to kind of initiate your conversation. So these are like associations, councils, which are there in the market. So depending on uh, in which what kind of industry you are targeting, you can identify relevant associations and councils, and you can probably leverage those channels to kind of target your target your prospects. There's another question, and Nelson, this is for you. So I think what I covered. So if could you share a frugal steps to kind of have a strong on-ground presence in an enterprise when there's a startup which is kind of
Sure.
building that.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, I'll give a very short answer, and
Yeah.
then I can follow it up offline with Deepak. But effectively, if you are not on the ground yourself in front of the customer, and the customer doesn't know you, and I'm assuming this is in the context of a startup because of the previous question that
Yeah, there's a
asked,
startup. Yeah.
right? So in context, I'm building my response, Deepak. You will want to bank on someone who is very close to those set of customers. Invariably, you have to have someone on your side who has the relationship with your target clients. No relationship, either no entry or a significant delay in being able to achieve anything at all. And if I understand the startup ecosystem very well, uh, there is not enough time, a luxury of time on hand. We want to go get hold of those low hanging fruits. We have to get someone who knows the customer stakeholders, who will be able to penetrate through that layers and get some quick wins on the ground. Hope that was helpful, Vish. And Deepak, hope it addresses
Thank
your
you.
question.
Yeah. Thank you, Nelson. Yeah, this helps. So let me conclude this segment, especially, I have put together a slide which does talk about what are the various elements that can actually configure or that can actually help you identify a landing zone. So one is the terrain. So that is what has been talked about. What is the lay of the land, the industry rules, the tech stack. So you need to understand, you need to do research on that terrain in which your prospects are operating. Second is the acute pain. Can you identify the pain that they are going through, job they are not able to fulfill? So what are the visible impact? Are there delays, risk, customer friction? Their vendors are not happy with the vendors. So that acute pain is something that you need to look for as a signal. Then third is rules of engagement. What are the rules of engagement with those kind of accounts? What approvals or constraints we must respect? So those are also critical when you are trying to identify a landing spot. Ground champion, we already talked about. It can be a champion, it can be Fox in that account. Entry lane, what is the cleanest path? Can we get a reference? Can we get a partner or an ally, or can be an association or a council that can give you a very cost effective entry with low integration and little risk. Timing and triggers are very important, so you have to be also watchful of what are the timings, what are the what is the business cycle of that account. Are they going through audit, renewal, migration, or even incidents that actually can give you the right moment to land? So that's a nutshell, to identify some of the landing spots. And I hope you would have got good insights as what has been shared by our expert panel here. Let me move to the next segment, which is on the identifying or building a door opener. And this is critical. Once we have identified a landing spot, it's you can't move unless you have defined your door opener. And the door opener, sometimes people think it, if I'm just sending out an email, that can be a door opener. That's a very crude way of saying it's a door opener. But let me go back, let me go to the panel, let me ask this question to them. So let me begin with Dean. Dean, we talked about multi-stakeholder buying, and when we are in that multi-stakeholder buying, what does a modern effective door opener cadence look like in practice, and how do hunters in particular create door openers that bypass gatekeepers and connect with economic buyers?
Yeah,
Do
great
share
question,
that.
Vish. In terms of this aspect, I mean, if you think about demand gen, I think McKinsey's information, I think we talked on it a month ago, is 0.5% open rate on email demand gen, lead gen, when the recipient doesn't know the sender. Phone calls, in the South, we would say, well, that's better. It could be like kissing your cousin. So you better hope you have a good looking cousin. But you need a intentional cadence. And the best I've seen is, wow, I'm trying to get to someone, Vish. Man, I hope I can come to Vish and go, hey, could you introduce me to Nelson? I would really appreciate that, because you're going to be able to say, hey, he's I think he's someone to have a conversation with. Whether it fits or not, that's your decision. But I know I trust him and he's a good guy. So you're trying to look for introductions. And I'll give you a great example. I was on doing a AI educational workshop for a fairly large company, about a $2 billion company. And we had their leadership team on. And in the prep for that, it's a friend, but he also put me on the spot. He said, okay, here is the top customer or prospect we're trying to get into in Chicago. This guy is prior PE. He won't let us in. And I go, well, let's roll up KnowledgeNet. I mean, let's just see. I said, I'm not in your industry. So the chances of me knowing anyone or having connection path to this decision maker, probably not very good, right? So we go in, we look, and I just start laughing, because one of the connection paths in dark blue line, and it says how you know him, but this one I didn't need to know that, is a guy that's one of my current prospects. I was introduced to that gentleman from Steve Beacham, who's like Mr. Alpharetta, great man, a good friend. And I'm like, wow, I can get to this guy through a customer prospect. Then I look further. And that gentleman had known him from the industry that they weren't even in anymore. The next person I saw was someone that does what I do in Charlotte, North Carolina. They had lived together in the same communities within Ohio. It was a personal relationship. But then the third one, all you got to do is start laughing sometimes. I'm looking going, I can't even believe this. When he's like, what? I go, look at the bottom one. That's Mike McClendon. We called him Magic in my fraternity in college. He was at my wedding. Good friend, one of those guys I kept up with, and it looked, these two gentlemen had worked together at R.R. Donnelley years back. So me, not even in the industry, I had 3 great connection paths, because this is what, don't make the assumption it's on who you know always. It's based on who the people that you know, who do they know, right? So you
Yeah.
start leveraging that. So that's where I think, Vish, we're redefining the game. But if you can get that soft or introduction from someone that person knows and trusts, I mean, it's a game changer. So that's what I recommend. That's what I do with my clients. It doesn't always work very easily, but you're always going to have a path. Sometimes you have a really great path to get to that decision maker.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, network and referral certainly are a critical door openers. And if you have built your relationship with them, that actually helps you in a long run. But let me give a little twist in terms of this question. Let me go to Nelson. Nelson, could you share one non-digital door opener and one digital door opener beyond email? Not talking about email, but beyond email, if there's a digital door opener you have seen working in saturated markets, and what made them convert? Why do you think that those are very impactful?
Now that's a tough one, Vish. Uh, Non-digital door opener, on-site micro diagnostics plus an exec readout, offer a 60-90 minute whiteboard session at the prospect's office. We benchmark one critical workflow against peer data, quantify 2 to 3 leakages, maybe time, risk, cost, and end with a one-page leakage map plus a CFO friendly payback sketch. No slides, no pitch, pure discovery. Why it converts? It creates compelling reasons to buy. Baseline first base in the prospects numbers builds a champion and de-risks change for IT or your finance through evidence, not adjectives. Digital door opener beyond email, personalized 90-second value teardown plus an interactive ROI mini calculator, a tight screen recording that uses the prospect's public signals, annual report, job postings, app flow to show one costly friction. Then it leads to a, let's say, 3 input ROI sheet pre-filled with their assumptions and with a conditional close. Again, like I said earlier, if we can prove X payback in Y months, will you sponsor a pilot? Why it converts? Specificity, their context, and endowment effect. They tweak the calculator, and fast credibility with finance or IT. Assumptions are explicit, testable. How I coach reps to build this creative muscle in baseline integrated the ICP into trigger into wedge disciple. So pick one trigger, audit finding or a new regulation merger, CXO change. Then design a wedge as either an on-site diagnostic, which is your non-digital, or a digital teardown plus an ROI. Scorecards before the slides. Every door opener must produce a 3 to 5 metric success scorecard. Example, less than 30-day integration or your SOC 2 controls met or your less than 9-month payback, 20% cycle time cut. This becomes the consensus. So, I mean, and we can go on and on, but I know, I mean,
Yeah,
we
that's
have.
amazing what you shared. In fact, that will take us a lot of time to understand each of the ROI calculator, the
Yeah,
leakage report, so on and so forth. So, that in itself
it will take
is
a
is
whole day long
a day
session
long.
to kind of,
Yeah,
whiteboard.
absolutely. Yes. But thank you, Nelson, for sharing that. Um, Atul, if you talked about some strategies in terms of um, uh, in an account. You shared an example. Uh, but say if you are targeting a cold market, you know, it's a new geography or vertical. Of course, we did talk about that. But then before identifying a landing spot, what should be the door opener strategy um, that should be built and that can help you differ when approaching a cold market? And say for instance prospect intelligence or any other some of the tools that Nelson has already talked about. But be a can that become a door opener? Could you share some more examples? Atul, you are on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think Dean and Nelson touched upon a few things, right? For example, in a new territory, if you need to, either you have to be there in person, or you have to find the right people who can be your eyes and ears on the ground, right? Number one. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, for you to get an entry, research is absolutely critical, right? So one way, which I have myself tried it, and I'm talking about 2006, 2007, when I was with Genpact, um, was to go through the open roles, open positions in that organization, right? Um, and figure out if you have the right people who can be deployed in those roles, right? And then you give it all your push, use all the strategies, all the tactics to get that person into that organization, right? So kind of doing an implant, right? Your own person going into that organization. So that is one strategy which worked very well for me in one of the accounts, and we could really land and expand, right? Obviously, you have to choose the right person, right? Someone who's smart, who can understand and reach out, and very extrovert person. Second thing, which is if you're going to a new territory, let's say Germany or Israel or America, North America, Canada, is to find people who are domain experts, right? Who are already well networked, right? If there is a way for you to get those people engaged, right? Now, engaged means there could be some element of budget. But having said that, let's assume they're engaged, right? Then their network, and again, like Dean mentioned about knowledge net, you can use knowledge net, you can use LinkedIn, whatever, right? And figure out what is the best way. So you
Yeah.
focus on certain clients, approach them through those, that domain expert, and so that's the second thing, right? So those are some of the ways through which you can get into a new account or new territory. But certainly, I think today, um, it's important to leverage the non-digital. If especially if you're getting into new, because your brand is not known, right? You're not. No one knows you. No one has. There are no referrals, right? And even if you get a reference from, let's say, your home country, it may not be relevant, right?
Correct.
So I think those are the things, but I think it all goes back to that you have to do a lot of research for that market. I mean, North America, like Dean said, you can't carpet bomb. It'll actually cost you a significant amount of money, right? Even if you pick up one state, right? If you're, let's say, targeting biotechnology, you look at Boston and maybe some of the nearby cities. Um, so you kind of narrow down, zero in on a particular geography, figure out who do you know over there, who's the person, which are the target persona, personas, target clients, and then do the research and then go after it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, do you also feel that, and that's a question to all of you, do you think that a business model or a product or a service can be a door opener if we exclude the cadence, which is required in terms of research, in terms of building connections? Do you think independently a business model or a product or a service can help you enter a market or enter an account?
If it's a unique, innovative, something very new which you're doing, yes, you can,
Hmm.
right? For
Can you
example,
share
when the
some
IT,
examples? Yeah.
yeah, so for example, ITES industry started, right?
Hmm.
The value proposition was labor arbitrage, right? That itself was
Hmm.
a significant value proposition, and
Yeah.
people were queuing up to get the work offshore, right? But
Hmm.
those are far and few. I mean, I let Nelson and Dean kind of talk about it.
Nelson?
I'll let Dean go first.
Okay. Dean, do you have a comment to my question?
Um,
Can there be a business model or product or service that can, in itself, be a door opener for an organization?
yeah, I think
And
anything, if you're at sea level, especially, but really in general,
hmm.
um, whatever you're offering, you must uncover the goals, aspirations, or the pain. And I would say that the majority of people that find me probably should have called someone 3 years ago. I mean, to say they're in pain is an understatement. They're going backwards in sales. So those are a little easier to define. But if you work hard to get the connection to get to a C level, you need to have done your homework and research in advance to prepare to really understand where they need help. I mean, where are they struggling, but also what are their goals? I mean, what's their 3 5 year target for revenue growth? And do they have a plan to get there? So I think while that sounds really basic, if you don't have that, you may have a great meeting, but you may not resonate with them, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
because I can tell you, the folks in pain, they tend to find me. The folks that are trying to scale where things are working, maybe not ideal, but they're working, they're
Hmm.
growing, they're making money. I try to find them because those are the
Hmm.
people I know I can help scale. Um, Easier said than done to find them, but again, if
Yeah.
you can identify the pain and or their goals and dreams, if you will, and have those well
Hmm.
identified, and you can address those with what you're selling, regardless of what it is, I think
Hmm.
that will put you in an unfair advantage in a
So
great way.
yeah, your product or service or business model can relate to that their pain, then
Yeah.
the potential of getting hurt may be higher. Nelson, any
Yeah.
yeah, Atul, you have a
Sorry,
comment?
Atul, you want to conclude?
No, no, no. I just wanted to add that, Uber and WeWork are a great example where
Hmm.
they came up with a model which was, it immediately took off. I mean, obviously there was
Exactly.
struggle, but there was a need which it fulfilled,
Hmm.
and the business model got sold. So the utility
Hmm.
model is something which is a great example there. Nelson, back to
Hmm.
you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Sure. So basically, and this is quite frustrating actually when a lot of people I connect with talk to me about this email outreach campaigns across some thousands and thousands of contact databases, and about shooting in the dark. And my strong guidance to these folks, especially these are mostly situations in startups, scale ups. They are in mode of rushing through. They want high velocity, but in the bargain, they are probably hurting the brand more than they are able to kind of generate any good leads out of such activities, because nobody wants to connect on something that looks like a generic mailing campaign. And my earnest request to all the folks who would be listening to this is that we have to be mindful. We have to go with very, very specific research. And when I say research, let's not think about it as NASA level research or ISRO level research. Very, very basic research about the person we're writing to, and identifying some pain that they're talking about in public domain that we can uncover. And then with that backdrop, to approach them is always, it's about the customer, right? It's not about what
Yeah.
we have, but it's about solving for the customer's problem. That has always worked, and not the other way around. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, we are working with a company and we are helping them identifying the ideal customer profile and in fact the independent software vendors with whom they can partner. But what we are actually looking at is it's not like we are reaching out to everyone. It's not like a spray and pray kind of an activity that we are doing, but we are helping them identifying, studying the tech landscape in all these organizations where there can be a gap where they can position their product. So if you have identified, if you have studied your target customers, identified where are the gaps where you can position your product, then it becomes easier for you to kind of, take that conversation forward. So yeah, that's. But thank you, Nelson. And let me quickly summarize this segment on opening, door openers here. While most of this has been already covered, Nelson did talk about wedge strategy. So a wedge business model would certainly work if there's a commercial construct that you can build that can lowers the risk and breaks resistance. So that then it becomes easier for a C-suite to go for your product or service. Allies and advisors does matter a lot. So it's a warhead open door opener framework that I'm sharing. So allies and advisors, that matters a lot. It's been talked about by all the speakers here. Reputation and reference is also critical. I think Atul touched upon reputation, which is also critical when you are entering a new market, and if you are bringing a reputation, sometimes reference may not work, but the reputation would work. Then there's a hero product or service, which is your flagship offering. In fact, that can also help you in terms of to become a door opener. Then executive to executive channel. Nelson, Dean, and Atul, they all talked about this channel that needs to be leveraged, and that needs to be leveraged in a very what Atul mentioned. You need to have a right orchestration, uh, uh, right governance in place when you are actually connecting with executives. Um, Next is the anchor content or IP. If you have built your own intellectual property or white paper or thought leadership or research, then certainly you should use it. Last is the delivery, how you are showing that value through pilots, through audits, through diagnostics. So that's where you need to also kind of build. You can use warhead framework to build a door opener. So that helps you when you are targeting a new market, a new account, or even an existing account. Um, but we are actually almost on top of the hour, and I don't think we can actually cover the third segment, which is more in terms of the real world scenarios. We have already talked about some of the real world scenarios, each one of us. But there's a question that has come from Deepak, and there's a last question that I can pick, and this question is actually for Dean. So Dean, Deepak is asking, we are working with a sales firm but didn't get any results, especially in I think they might be working with a sales firm in US market. So what terms should we set in such engagements given our limited runway?
Well, it's a great question, and you caught me off guard earlier with the other question because I was actually reading Deepak's question at the time. Um, I think if you go into, and you guys already know this about me, I think that you need someone that is going to dive in and really get involved, really understand your business. And I'm going to say be more like a builder and architect. What you don't want, and it sounds like Deepak may have gotten that, they either got someone who's not relative that can help them, or what unfortunately happens, and we all see this in all aspects of what we do, there's too many people that call themselves consultants. That's also someone that may or may not be willing to dive in and get their hands dirty. So I think you need someone that's willing to dive in with you, build out that infrastructure, because so many times people try. I know, Atul, you and I've talked on this many times. They try to go and scale, but you don't even have things where they're working or sustained. So you got to kind of slow down and do that part first. Unfortunately, you're not going to see quite the return immediately. But if you don't do those basic blocking and tackling, you don't have everything identified that's repeatable. When you go to scale, you're going to create yourselves a lot of issues. But way too many people in the world I'm in are consultants. And if you guys already know this, I simply call myself a builder and an architect. And or when the larger companies, I call myself an advisor. I don't. There's just too many people trying to come in and say, "Here's your roadmap. Go," and everybody's going, "What do I do with this?" So I try not to do that. I really want to dive in and be a part of their team, be a part of their company, and a part of their family as I work with them. And I think whoever they select, you need that kind of approach in person that's going to dive in and make a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dean. Atul, Nelson, do you have any point here? Especially because there's a question that I've seen coming from small and mid-sized companies often. That, can we engage with an outsourced sales partner, especially from the context of India, or any other context that you can bring in? Do you have any comment
I
that
can
you'd like to add?
give a very generic answer, because I don't know what kind of business Deepak is in, but that we can take offline. But see, the thing is that US market is also is in a lot of turmoil, right? So maybe he hasn't got the results because the market conditions are difficult, right? There is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of flux. People are waiting and seeing in terms of how things are going to shape up the next week and the
Yeah.
next, right? So that's one side of the coin, right?
So
Second thing is,
Atul, Deepak is in Gurgaon. He has an IT services company. So just
okay,
let you know.
okay.
For
So see,
context,
now here, Nelson is a way step ahead from all of us. He's already
Research.
connected with Deepak.
the sales guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think
That's how you find them.
Yeah. You're right.
yeah. No, and then the other thing is that, I think like Dean said, you need someone who can handhold you through the journey, right? You don't need someone. I have had people who have approached me saying, okay, I can get you a deal and I'm going to take $10,000. I said, not interested, right?
Yeah.
I'll just add to that, Atul, because I have had exposure in this area,
Yeah.
similar to Dean. And what I've seen with Indian organizations who want to go and expand into US, because of course US is a huge market, right? And everyone's got a little bit to grab from the market, and it's very lucrative in that sense. But the challenge is our bootstrapped organizations, especially, are unable to kind of put in those dollars to fund an expensive sales resource. Now, that is the catch. While that's true, you have a lot of folks who would freelance for you, whichever part of US you might look at. And, the biggest mistake that startup founders end up doing is looking at some glossy presentation full of promises to say that we will take you to X by Y period of time and things like that. I would urge those founders to do sufficient due diligence on the people they're talking to. Ask for a list of customers they currently engage with. Look at the kind of fit, the right fitment. What's going well for someone else need not necessarily go well for this organization, right? And that's where they flounder. And then 6 months down the line, it's an argument turns to fire, and then it kind of cut off the umbilical cords. One has to do a little bit of due diligence. You got to find the Dean Nolly who has the expertise to be able to help you grow there, rather than just kind of fall prey to some fancy slideware promise giving you all kinds of promises. And that's what I've seen happen all the time.
No, that is true. In fact, there's also there is a period that you should also count at least. And as per my discussion earlier with Dean and with some of the prospects, you need to keep at least 3 months to 6 months aside only for setting up in terms of knowledge transfer or processes when you are actually liaising with a sales partner in that market. So there's a lot of governance that you might want to build in your system, and you need to keep a window of at least 3 months to 6 months before you could start seeing the results. But yeah,
That's right.
I just want to add one thing. I think another thing which I've seen since Nelson brought up the whole thing about Indian startups, right? I've also seen, and it's not just Indian startups, for that matter, any startup. If you're going to a US market, and Dean will relate to it, many times we position ourselves that we can do everything, right? So that everything is where American customers will just get you, they will close the door on you, right? I think my reading of American buyer is that they are looking for specialization. They are looking for those niche skills, those niche capabilities, right? So if you're going and talking to a customer, do your research, figure out which is the sweet spot where you want to land up and have a detailed conversation. Be ready to have a detailed conversation, right?
yeah.
So that is something which I have realized about US market. You can't be a generalist in a US market. In India,
Thank
you can
you.
be
Yeah, thank you, Atul. So the real competitive edge, and just to conclude, so isn't just about faster pitches or sharing a lot of content to your target prospects, or even emails, or even the discounts and offers. So maybe it's about sharpening your landing spots and building a smart door opener that can actually help you scale moving forward.
I'm going
Thank
to
you,
stay
Dean.
away from the discounts and the offers because I don't believe in the discounting strategy. I in
Absolutely.
fact ask for a premium. I teach people how to ask for premium because selling value. It's
Yeah.
never about discounting. I don't know why people talk about discounts all the time. I hate that word.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Nelson. Thank you for adding that insight. I think that's very critical insight. So yeah, you should be away. Keep yourself away from discounts and offers. Do not get into that blind spot. That can actually open a Pandora box for you moving forward.
Correct.
But thank you so much for joining this live
Thank you,
session
Yash.
today, and thank you, Dean, Nelson, and Atul, for joining and sharing your insights here. We have our next session that is on 18th of September. This session is on the $10 million sales desk, mental model, sales motions, or machine logic. So we are going to look at these three aspects when you are building a $10 million sales desk. So we have Deepak who is joining us, and we would also have some of the panel members from today's session, Nelson and Dean, who would be also joining there. And of course, Atul will be continuing with us in our future sessions. But yes, we do confirm your participation. Ritika has also already shared link of that session in the comment section. And feel free to reach out to any of the speakers that we have today. But thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Oh.